What is the Matrix? For all its popularity, the Matrix is a subject that few seem to really understand, though in some respects the movie was actually close. However, instead of what the movie termed to be an interactive software, think of the Matrix as the manner in which the souls of living creatures are able to interact with the Trinity, because unbeknownst to us, the Trinity is the Matrix. In my first video entitled God's Physical Being, I explained how the 3-in-1 Trinity physically exists as our 3-in-1 subatomic realm. In that, the Holy Spirit physically exists as energy in all its forms, being omnipotent, all-powerful. God the Son physically exists as elementary particles in all their forms, being omnipresent, all-present. God the Father physically exists as the Higgs field, which either exists as or contains within it the laws of knowledge in all of its forms, being omniscience, all-knowing. Which reveals that the Trinity physically exists as our subatomic realm, being our foundational building blocks of inanimate objects, while the Matrix exists as the realm in which the souls of living creatures are able to interact with the Trinity, meaning that what science calls the subatomic realm, the Bible calls the Matrix, and what the Bible calls the Matrix, Christianity calls the Trinity, each of which are the exact same thing, only clothed in different terminology. Mindful of that, consider this analogy. A computer exists in 3 parts: the hardware, the software, and the energy which empowers the hardware and software to interact together as one. Likewise, our subatomic realm, being our realm of inanimate objects, exists as the hardware to life. The Matrix, being the realm in which the souls of living creatures are able to interact with inanimate objects, exists as the software, while the Holy Spirit exists as the breath of life that empowers the souls of living creatures to interact with the hardware of inanimate objects. Now, with those things said, consider these verses. Exodus 13:12 reads, that thou shalt set apart unto the Lord all that openeth the matrix, every firstling that cometh of a beast which thou hast, the males be the Lord's. While Exodus 13:15 reads, and it come to pass, when Pharaoh would hardly let us go, that the Lord slew all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all that openeth the matrix, being males, but all the firstborn of my children I redeem. As does Exodus 34:19, all that openeth the matrix is mine, and every firstling among thy cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male. As well as Numbers 3:12, and I behold, I have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel, instead of all the firstborn that openeth the matrix among the children of Israel. Therefore the Levites shall be mine. And Numbers 3:12, everything that openeth the matrix in all flesh, which they bring unto the Lord, whether it be of men or beasts, shall be thine. Nevertheless, the firstborn of man shalt thou surely redeem, and the firstling of the unclean beast shalt thou redeem. From those verses, theologians have commonly referred to the matrix as a womb, but that definition is only partially true. After all, a womb is nothing more than energy, elementary particles, and the laws of knowledge in a different form, thus making a womb nothing more than the Trinity in another form. In turn, revealing that the matrix is actually how the souls of living creatures are able to interact with the realm of inanimate objects, all of which exists as the Trinity in continuously ever-changing forms. And while that might make sense to some and be confusing to others, what we can all understand is our concept of destiny, as each of us has a destiny that the Father had prepared for us before the foundation of the world. However, few there be that find their destinies, because few there be who are willing and obedient to allow the Spirit within them to teach them how to eventually become their destinies. With this foundation now laid, let's begin. Destiny is a concept that many throughout history have believed belonged to them, especially military icons. However, what we need to discover is why a few have been able to attain their destinies, while the vast majority of others have not. Much of which I covered in my previous video entitled, What is Grace?, which explained our responsibility of having to grow in both passive and active grace in order to attain our destinies. While this video is more focused upon all that God the Father had already done for each of us before the foundation of the world. Along with that, science has long speculated that we live in a simulated universe, while knowing that nature is written in mathematical code not only provides solid evidence for that belief, but it also helps to give us greater insight into the numerous verses which state all of the things that God had done before the foundation of the world. as through this knowledge we can also better understand our faulty perceptions of unanswered prayers, because there is no such thing as unanswered prayers. What we have failed to understand is that we've simply developed habits of praying wrongly, as contrary to our faulty perceptions, God will never do anything for us in our future simply because He's already done everything for us in our past, being before the foundation of the world. Meaning that today God does not do things for us as much as He does things through us, through our willingness and obedience to be led by the Spirit that currently dwells within us. That's why God the Father is currently at rest from all His work which He had performed during the 6 days of creation, though the Son and Holy Spirit are each active. Mindful of that, John 14:13-14 reads, "And whatsoever ye shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If ye shall ask anything in my name, I will do it." Be honest, not religious. Have you ever asked anything in Jesus' name and didn't receive what you had asked for? Of course you have. We all have. Did you reconcile your lack of results as the mystery of unanswered prayer? Of course you have. We all have. Which begs the question, why didn't our prayers of faith achieve their desired end result? Religious spirits will tell you it's because you were not strong enough in faith to really believe that what God said that He would do, that He would really do it. Because if you really believed it, He would have done it, which is wholeheartedly wrong. Know in advance that our concepts of unanswered prayers and being too weak in faith to receive are nothing more than crutches used to support our ignorance as to why subjects that had been taught by many have failed to yield their desired results. With that said, know that if you're willing to accept the notion of unanswered prayers as your reasoning as to why you've consistently failed to receive your desired results from your prayers of faith, then know in advance that this video is not for you. Because I believe in either getting results or understanding why I had failed to receive, period. Therein lies the difference between most preachers and myself, as many preachers have no problem with saying, we don't know why God heals some and not others. We don't know why God prospers some and not others. We don't know why God answers some prayers and not others. All of which places a focus on our lack of receiving upon God, rather than upon ourselves, when in reality, those preachers should have said, we don't know why some receive healing and others do not. We don't know why some receive prosperity and others do not. We don't know why some receive answered prayers and others do not. As that wording emphasizes that a few have done right, while many have not, and in turn focuses the problem on us being where the blame belongs. Furthermore, please understand that no one has all the answers to the mysteries of life. However, know that each of my videos has been designed to give many valuable insights as to why our faulty human perceptions have formed our illusions of unanswered prayers. Now, with that being said, let's glean some insights as to why God will never do anything for you in your future because He's already done everything for you in your past, thus making it your responsibility to learn how to pray and be led by the Spirit from within you in accordance with all that the Father had already done for you before the foundation of the world. Having said that, know that many of your unanswered prayers have resulted from your paths of least resistant crutches, being your belief in all of the things that God will do for you, as His doing for you implies little to no effort on your part. Conversely, answered prayers are found in your paths of most resistance, being your willingness and obedience to have God do things through you, through your willingness and obedience to be led by the Spirit in accordance with all that the Father had previously done when He created the matrix of life. Yet, what is the matrix of life? I like to answer that question in one of two ways. First is to quote Professor Paul Davies, and that nature is written in mathematical code, being the single most important factor that enables us to understand, control, and predict the outcome of physical processes. Second is through this analogy I've written. Imagine you're playing a computer game. On the screen before you exist several doors, and you must decide which of those doors that you will step through. Obviously, your dilemma is your ignorance of what's behind each door, as one might open to a room full of treasure, another to an executioner, or another to some faraway exotic land. There is, however, someone who knows what's behind each of those doors, the person who wrote the code. Let's say that programmer had written the code 5 years ago in your past, which would mean no matter how long you played the game, nor how foolish your decisions might be, that 5 years ago in your past, that programmer had full knowledge of every single present decision you could ever make, as well as every future screen your decisions could potentially lead you towards. Did you see it? In this computer game, that human programmer is omniscience, meaning all-knowing. as before that game had been mass-produced, packaged, and distributed, that programmer knew 5 years ago in your past every single past, present, and future decision you could ever make while you played the game. Yet, not only that, but that programmer had also created pre-established straight and narrow pathways to speedily take you to its end reward, while your errant decisions exist as your Broadway paths of destruction. In so doing, science is correct to say that we live in a simulated universe, because just like that computer game, before the foundation of the world, the Father created the Matrix in order for us to seamlessly interact with the Trinity as the game of life unfolds in preordained ways before us, meaning that the Matrix is as the computer game that a computer programmer would create. Now, if any individual can know the past, present, and future of anything, as well as having the power to create the pre-established pathways towards some desired end, how much more the Lord? Granted, some will reject this analogy, as they'll point out we have free will in the decisions we make, though failing to recognize that we play computer games with free will decisions as well. Therefore, not only did that human programmer have full knowledge of every single character displayed in that game, but he or she had full knowledge of every free will decision that any single character could ever make while playing that game. Yet, not only that, but you could also have a game book to teach you how to be led in accordance with everything that the human programmer had already done for you 5 years ago in your past. As we could liken that game book as the spirit within you who can teach you how to flow along each of the pre-established pathways that have been created, as well as to successfully exit every entrapment that you could ever find yourself in. Which is one reason why Romans 8:14 reads, "For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God." Notice, it's those who are led by the Spirit that are the sons of God, and not those who merely pray and believe that God is going to do things for them in their future. Therein lies a great insight as to why many have failed to receive from their many prayers of faith, as they've never been rightly taught how to be led by the Spirit from within them. Now, with all that being said, consider these verses. Hebrews 4:3 reads, "For we which have believed do enter into rest, as he said, As I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world." Ephesians 1:4 reads, "According as he hath chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love." While Matthew 25:43 reads, "Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world." As does 1 Peter 1:20, "Who was verily foreordained before the foundation of the world, but was manifest in these last times for you." As well as Revelation 13:8, "And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world." In Revelation 17:8, "The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world." Which now compels me to state that the foundational verse of this video is Hebrews 4:3. "For we which have believed do enter into rest, as he said, As I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although works were finished from the foundation of the world." Notice that phrase, "shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world." If you want to know the true root cause for most of our unanswered prayers, it's simply because we don't understand how to enter into his rest of all the work that he had already done for us from the foundation of the world. Which brings us back to our computer game analogy. Every computer game has a perfectly played pathway that will safely take you from beginning to end, with that pathway being the programmer's rest of all that had been done for you 5 years ago in your past, which is exactly the same as God's pathway of rest, which he had already done for you at the foundation of the world. However, Jesus is the only one to have perfectly entered into the Father's rest, as Calvary was foreordained to be Jesus' end game, that in turn allowed his bride to be multiplied back to him through his death, burial, and resurrection. Subsequently, many of our unanswered prayers are the result of being outside his rest, as we patiently wait for God to do things for us in accordance with our prayers and the power of our faith, as opposed to growing in the necessary aspects of grace by which to allow God to do things through us, through our willingness and obedience to be led by the Spirit from within us, and through the matrix of life. Now let's change our focus once again. Using our computer game analogy, we can better understand how God will never do anything for us in our future because he's already done everything for us in our past, meaning that our future has already been pre-programmed. It's just that those events have yet to play out, which in turn reveals how the Bible can be a book of self-fulfilling prophecies, because having pre-programmed the matrix of life, the Father easily knows the future as well as the past, which empowers his prophecies with 100% accuracy. Along with that, know that the book of Revelation isn't a writing that tells us what the future holds, as much as it's like a newspaper account of events that have already happened, as those events actually happened at the foundation of the world. They've just yet to unfold. This in turn reveals how each of us have pre-programmed destinies that we are meant to fulfill, which we fulfill as we learn how to accumulate in the necessary aspects of grace as the Spirit leads us from within us, because it's through our accumulated levels of grace that we grow in the power to become our destinies, meaning that God is not going to give our destinies to us, as many have so errantly taught, but rather, he is going to give us our destinies in direct proportion to our willingness and obedience to successfully be led by the Spirit through the matrix of life. Or, as Hebrews 10:36 reads, it is after you have done the will of God that you might receive the promise. Unfortunately, there is much to be said here on how to receive our promises, though it's also important that I try to keep each video concise. If you desire to know more about this subject, please watch my previous video entitled, How to Take Possession of a Promise from the Lord. Now prepare yourself for a marvelous revelation that will alter your understanding of faith, through the knowledge that hope looks to the future, grace looks to the present, faith looks to the past in order to discern all that was done from the foundation of the world. As it takes far greater faith to believe that God had already done everything for you in your past, which implies you must be led, than it takes to believe that he will do things for you in your future, which implies little to no effort on your part. Which now leads us to Luke 12:48, for unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required. Meaning that much was given to you at the foundation of the world, whereby much is required of you in order to eventually take possession of it. In so doing, faith says that I will attain my destiny through my efforts to grow in grace, while unbelief says that God is going to do it for me in my future. Therein lies the problem for many believers, particularly Pentecostals, who continuously pray and believe that God is going to do things for them in their future, only to later discover themselves in their paradox of faith and lack of results, having never understood that he had already done everything for them in their past, whereby they're now required to learn how to be led by the Spirit from within them. And it's all because we've never been properly taught that whenever we place the focus of our faith upon all that God is going to do for us in our future, that we've unintentionally deceived ourselves through our formation of preconceived and unrealistic expectations, which are always the enemies of faith. You see, believing that God had already done everything for you in your past creates active faith and inspires you to grow through the necessary aspects of grace by which to eventually become your promises, being your paths of most resistance. Subsequently, your lack of receiving your desired results then becomes your fault. Conversely, believing that God will do things for you in your future creates passive faith and deceives you into believing that little to no effort is required on your part because God is the one who will be doing it, being your paths of least resistance. Subsequently, you've predetermined your lack of results as God's fault for not being true to his word, as opposed to your fault for not being led by his Spirit from within you, being what I call your paradox of faith and lack of results. Now let's examine Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Notice that faith and hope are listed as two separate entities, meaning your knowledge that God had already done something for you in your past is what gives your hope the substance to stand upon, because without that knowledge your hope is nothing more than a daydream, being a future disappointment not yet fulfilled. Yet how do we enter into something that's already been done for us in our past? Well, isn't that what archaeologists do whenever they open some ancient tomb? I mean, in the present, don't archaeologists enter into things that had already been done long ago in their past? Obviously, if man could seal up such treasures in the past, how much more could the all-powerful creator of the universe do through the creation of the matrix of life before the foundation of the world? Regardless, in order to enter into what had already been done for you in your past, you'll have to learn how to simultaneously walk in the spirit of your past, present, and future, or in other words, by grace through faith with hope, which is the progressive power of spiritual balance to become someone greater than who and what you've always been. Which now leads me to close with this quote from Albert Einstein. The American lives even more for his goals, for the future, than the European. Life for him is always becoming, never being.